to 4, staying with Newsnight. Let's get into that conversation now. And you can send in your tweets at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Newsnight. In fact, let's bring up some of them right now and see what you're saying online before we continue with Angela Ambitho, who's here with us, CEO Infotrak Research and Consulting Limited. Let's bring that up on the screen and see what your concerns are. All right. Kurgat says, actually, Trevor, it's not Cheruiyot alone. Nobody trusts Infotrak anymore. Those are doctored findings. Okay? Bring up something else. Boniface Mutemi says Infotrak is wrong. They used to tell Raila is ahead on polls during election. This is a scam. They post percentage after payment. CEO is wrong. Infotrak vumilia serikali ile iko. Okay. Babu Owino, Embakasi East Member of Parliament, says Trevor, Angela Ambitho is a very intelligent lady whose research firm does an excellent job. I trust Infotrak 100%. Before we get into the details of the report, Angela, there's something, the biggest problem Infotrak seems to be facing now is a credibility issue. And that's what Aaron Cheruiyot was alluding to, is the fact that you called the election wrong. Why don't you put this matter to rest once and for all? Because this seems to be the gist of it all, that you called the elections wrong. Why should you be trusted now?
Trevor, I was telling you a few minutes ago, maybe the audience doesn't know, that we have been doing this since 2007. In 2007, we called an election. It was claimed that we called it wrong. You know what happened. In 2013, we called an election, and of course, we called it the same way many other research firms called it. It was claimed that we called it wrong. We again called the election in 2017, together with other pollsters, and it was said we called it wrong. It went back, and indeed, we seem to have called it wrong again this time round. What am I trying to say? Opinion poll is a snapshot of people's perceptions at a given point in time. It is a mirror that reflects what society is feeling and thinking, and society has the prerogative, as and when they will, to change their minds. Pollsters' job is to tell you what the view of that particular populace feels at that point. Today, I may like Trevor. If you ask me another few days, I may not, for whatever reason. Would that mean that if a pollster said yesterday that Trevor was not liked by Angela and then changed his mind, the pollster was wrong? Absolutely not. But I would like us to focus, Trevor. Let us not deal with sideshows. Let us focus on the key issues here. We have a poll, and this is a poll that we have conducted, that is saying that majority of Kenyans think the country is headed in the wrong direction. Now, those people who feel, some of them in political spaces, that this is wrong, have the wherewithal to conduct their own poll. It's a science. Okay. So it is not something within the confines and owned by Infotrak or indeed Trevor. Anybody can do a poll. Okay. And perhaps those people who are feeling very uncomfortable with these numbers, because obviously to them, Kenya is indeed headed in the right direction. That is one. Because when you dispute something, I think it is better to dispute it intelligently based on the merit of facts. The first fact is the country for most people headed in the right direction? And if people think that that is the case, then they should posit their argument. That's point number one. The second thing is, if somebody is arguing that this is fake, then they're saying that there is no high cost of living. Because 72% have said the reason why the country is headed in the wrong direction is indeed because life has become untenable. Now, some of them that you have mentioned, including, senior politicians, are saying this is hogwash. High cost of living is not a problem for Kenyans, including their voters. And indeed, the country is headed in the right direction because things are, pretty. Things are sitting pretty. Okay. This is really what I would want, perhaps, to delve discussion on. Whether or not we are believed or not is neither here nor there. We are just giving a representation of the views over populous based on a science. Now, tomorrow, government may do something. They may alleviate our suffering by ensuring that, the high cost of living goes down. And indeed, 50% may say the country is now headed in the right direction. Would you now come out and say Infotrak was wrong? No. It's because people are allowed to change their minds. And that's the only way I can answer that question, because we only reflect what people tell us.
Yeah, and it is essentially a moving target.
It's a moving target, exactly.
Yeah. And now there's another issue. Sometimes critics say that maybe the questions need to be much more clearer. For example, the people who say that the country is heading in the wrong direction, 4% talk of poor governance as a reason. What is poor governance? Others talk of bad politics. What is the description of that? How do they describe poor governance and bad politics?
Remember, the question that is asked to a respondent is not an exam question. It is meant to be a simple question, and it is given to you in the report, which is, what direction do you think the country is headed in today? Is it headed in the right direction, wrong direction, or neither right or wrong direction? They're not forced. There's no pressure. They give the answer. Thereafter, for whatever they say, they're asked, why do you say it is headed in the right or wrong direction? That's not a bad question. Would you agree? Now, I can then say, ni siasa mbaya. What is siasa mbaya in English, Trevor?
So you don't delve in to ask them to explain?
It's not an exam. No, it's why.
Why
it's not an exam.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just giving you a snapshot on people's views.
Okay.
Now, policymaker, good, clever one, will then say, oh, is this really what the case is? Let us now flesh it, bring it apart, and find out exactly what is meant by those who are saying bad politics in the different regions. You may find that more people in Nairobi are saying so than perhaps more people in Rift.
Yeah.
Now, if that is the case, then you'd ask yourself, what is driving that perception? And indeed, that's what numbers are meant to do.
Okay.
You're supposed to interact with them and then say, how are we supposed to then respond to the pain points that our people who voted for us, and even those who did not vote for us, because you're leader of everybody, including the legislators. Now, our legislators, first and foremost, for those who voted for them, but they're in a house which forms government, and therefore it is in their interest, and it is their job to work for all of us. So even if they don't, like what I'm saying, they should listen to it and find out whether there's something they can do about it, so long as it holds merit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this issue of corruption, it used to be a ranking key issue of concern, but now it's much lower at 1%, and it's the people who say they're no longer concerned. Is it that the people are no longer concerned with corruption?
People are concerned with corruption, and I think it's higher than 1%. I think if it is an issue that is meant to be dealt with as a matter of priority, where you only mention one issue at a time, then of course, remember that you can't, Trevor, if I am hungry, I have no wherewithal to pay my rent, I can't take my children to school. For Pete's sake, it would be a bit, ambitious to be asking me to start talking to you conceptually about how government is supposed to deal with corruption. The first things first, my stomach, what matters to me in terms of basics, and then after that, I can now start relating with more, conceptual issues that, of course, may be affecting why I am not able to get these basic needs.
Okay. Let's talk about the ranking of the CSS and the ministries. Best performing cabinet secretary, according to this report, is Kithure Kindiki from the Interior and Coordination of National Government, yet his ministry is ranked 5th. Eliud Owalo's ICT ministry is ranked 1st, yet he himself is ranked 9th. Do you see a discrepancy there?
It is a discrepancy that makes sense. But I mean, because I wanted to be as comfortable for you as you were, we actually run the numbers twice, just to be sure. And I think the answer is very simple, that you do have ministries that we are interacting with very intimately as opposed to others. So for instance, the ICT is in our face. Digitization is in our face. It is a daily affair. And so the ministry and its efforts, and indeed under the leadership of the minister or the cabinet secretary, is being perceived to be doing a comparatively better job, because 54 is by ND standards not applaudable. Okay? You would not tell your child, well done. You have done exemplary well with a 54%. It's a C, right? So you have that, but are they linking this when you ask the question? Because the question we asked is, who is the best performing minister in your opinion? It's a perception question, it's a top of mind question. What drives perception and top of mind? What you see and hear. So the question is, how many times are we seeing and hearing activities from the person of the Cabinet Secretary of Internal Affairs vis-a-vis the rest, based on the purview of things that he has to deal with? So is he not the first item on your news for the last 1 month? Now, you may, and some people may think he's there and he's not doing as well as he ought to have. But there are also 27% who are thinking, because it's only 27% who mentioned him, who are thinking that he is doing his best and therefore mentioned him. So that then becomes the case. You will see that there are ministries, for instance, like East African Community, RAID, and it's a very long, there are very many, elements or departments within that ministry and docket. Yeah. But how many people interact with that particular ministry to the point that they can even tell you who the minister is or the cabinet secretary is and what the roles are? So I think the rankings and the ratings are by far and large based on, one, many cases, the interactions. We interact a lot with roads. Yeah. We interact with energy. But because electricity has been so costly, and is a sore thumb for most of us, then we know how to rate it. Yeah. For finance, it would be because of the pinch we're feeling in the economy. And we've seen that with various cabinet secretaries and that docket, that typically it tends to do quite poorly in the last, say, 2-3 years. Yeah. So this cabinet secretary is not going to be the first to be rated poorly because his predecessors suffered the same fate.
Isn't it then unfair, Angela, to rank them like that, because it's based on perception and how many times they seem to be appearing on media? I mean, ministries like mining don't necessarily appear all the time, whereas interior there's been cut rustling going on. So would it not be fair to say that Honorable Salim Mvurya is not doing a good job simply because his ministry doesn't appear much on media?
Trevor, perception is reality. And when they're campaigning, perception is what drives them to get elected, no? In most cases. So indeed, how much you can convince us, because you and I will not go to any of these ministries just for the sake of it. Indeed, you may be privy enough to go to State House and to talk to the head of state to understand in detail some of the intricacies of what he's doing. But what does every typical Kenyan know about Ruto's government and President Ruto himself? It is based on what is reported in the news. So even if we were to gauge President Ruto today, outside the things that we see and feel, most of it will be based on how he interacts with us and what he tells us himself he's doing. So I'm sorry, but there's no unfairness in that. They're public officers. If you're doing something and you think it is something that's applaudable, then the onus is on you to communicate it effectively or demonstrate it effectively to us, so that we as citizens can understand that things are going on and indeed there are steps being made, milestones are being, created in your sector that we should appreciate based on what was promised by your government. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the thing, Angela. Should it be based on KPIs then, so that a ministry is ranked on its own based on what it was supposed to achieve vis-a-vis what it has achieved, rather than the perception of how many times they appear?
We can discuss this.
I know you said it's not an exam, but I'm just saying that.
And yes, it is not. Yeah. Now, there are people who will conduct audits, physical audits. this is not our survey. Ours is a perception survey based on the citizen who voted, the Kenyan, the Mwananchi, and what they think, because they have a right to think about the cabinet secretaries and the ministries themselves. Now, somebody else can very well go and do a study where they go and determine how many kilometers of road has been tarmacked, or indeed how the banditry affair is being handled in terms of peace and security and borderlands for the internal security. But ours is a perception study. Now, very soon you will see our county study. The county study, which looks at the devolved governments, does have those KPIs, because they're very clearly stipulated and they don't change. There are 14 devolved functions, and under those 14 devolved functions since 2014, we have developed KPIs. And those KPIs are the ones that are actually gauged based on the same Likert scale. But for the ministries, we just thought to do a very simple one to begin with, to understand the perception of Kenyans overall on the performance in the first 100 days, because we were told things would happen in first 100 days. With regards to the ministries, and indeed with regards to the personalities of cabinet secretaries.
Okay. And I see here that there are 22%. We're talking about those who are saying it's heading in the wrong direction. There are those who are saying it's heading in the right direction. 22% of them are saying the country is heading in the right direction. What they're mentioning is the biggest issue here is there's peace in the country. But they've also mentioned another one here, that people are now paying taxes now compared to the previous regime. Again, is this a perception issue? Because we don't have any evidence to back some of this.
And a citizen does not need evidence so long as they believe that be the case for them. And that is why they're believing that be the case. Why, Trevor? Because remember that for many of us, as I had mentioned before, the way we know that things are happening, unless we're interacting with those things firsthand, is based on what our leaders tell us. Okay. Now, if we trust the leaders and they tell us that we are now going to be able to, widen the tax bracket and we are going to be efficient in our tax collection, and you're a leader that I trust, I will believe that that be the case. And for me, if it was something that I was unhappy about and you're saying you're going to deal with it, I will say the country is headed in the right direction for that reason. Yeah. There's no reason for you to put a gun to my head for me as a Wanjiko to prove that that be the case. It's a perception that is driving my own thoughts. Yeah. Yeah.
This is pretty much a perception issue, and I know we've talked about this, but let me double back to that same conversation on rankings, because you said the one for counties is going to come. This one, this time, you've broken it down in terms of KPIs. So how then would an ordinary Kenyan interact with the Ministry of Mining, for example? I mean, Angela, they might not even know what their mandate really is.
There's mining and what? That ministry is called mining and what?
Mining and
blue economy?
Blue economy, yes.
Yeah. What is blue economy? It's where you and I come from.
Yep, yeah. But most people don't know it.
No, let us not assume that. You see, the problem that we do, and I probably used to do this 27 years ago before I started research, is that I used to think the common man is a fool. The common man is not a fool. The common man understands, and when they don't understand, they will tell you, what exactly are you, unaniuliza nini? Ebu nifafanua hiyo swali vizuri. Yeah. So our researchers are also trained to help these people understand. Now, of course, when it comes to blue economy, you would tell them to deal with the lakes, the water, and the economy of, the oceans, etc., fishing, water transport, etc. And say, okay, if that's what it means, then my rating is this. You don't have to be well-educated to be smart and intelligent. And many of our Kenyans are very well glued on what it is they think and feel.
Yeah. The reason why I'm digging in on this, Angela, is because of the ranking of the CSs. And that is, of course, an emotive issue, because some of them feel that they've been unfairly ranked. For example, if you're saying that, then it means that you may have then explained to the people that the Ministry of Interior, its mandate is 1, 2, 3. Do they agree that they've achieved those mandates, considering they're dealing with banditry even right now as we speak? But
Trevor,
then it is ranked.
Your issue is that a CS is unhappy that they have been ranked unfairly. I think yours and my issue should be that if they were ranked at number 4 or number 10, they should interact with the report, because it is in your interest and mine, my dear, that if they interact with that report, then they will go back to their departments and directorates and say, as we used to have in the Kibaki time when they had performance appraisal, which many research agencies actually partook in because there were KPIs, and say, we are rolling our sleeves. This is what has happened. We've been working. Somebody may even say, a cabinet secretary may even say, unajua, we've been working. Like one called me today and said, we've been working enyewe, lakini people don't seem to know what we're doing. We are going to the drawing board, and from next month, we will have sensitization. We will make people understand what we are doing, but we will also hear what it is they want us to do. Now, who will that benefit, Trevor? You're worried about someone's feelings. Are you not rated? Do you not go through a performance appraisal here all the time?
Yeah. But it's not about me, Angela. No, it's talking about the report.
Yeah. No, but the report is about us, yeah. Trevor. Now, third world, developing world, surely, it sometimes hurts me and pains me when I hear some of the questions we ask ourselves. It is as if we are not deserving of better. You and I are deserving of better. And these public officials, whether they be cabinet secretaries or they be elected members of parliament like Aaron, are paid by your tax. So indeed, if we query their performance within a specific time using a method that we can defend, like I'm defending now, so that they can also go back to the drawing board and take the criticism, where it's criticism, and say, how do we improve? Okay. Who does it benefit? But why does the Kenyan, or sometimes the person from developing world, think we are not deserving? Why are we asking questions like we are not meant to get the best? Come on, we are meant to get the best.
So they need to communicate.
And they should adopt, whether it is something that is just a cliche, servant leadership. Servant leadership. This is what they sing to us. Servant leader would not be saying, I'm lying. Servant leader would be saying, oh my goodness, people are saying, 62% are saying things are going badly. This is what they would be focusing on. In fact, servant leader would not be bothering about how they were ranked. Why should they be bothering about that right now? Okay. They should be bothering about what is hurting us. That 72% of us are saying, we don't know how we're going to make our ends meet tomorrow. Okay. Yeah.
I've also noticed here that on the report of the 62% of Kenyans who feel the country is headed in the wrong direction, there are side notes, other mentions: help, bad weather conditions, increased dollar, too much borrowing, lack of water, lack of subsidies, and calamities. So explain to us the side notes.
Because it was less than enough? It was not significant enough for it to, because you see we have up to 0.1% there.
Yeah. Yes.
So that means that those ones clustered there, they were indeed mentioned by people, but they did not meet the threshold for them to appear on the graph. But it is good to know, because somebody may ask, did people not talk about the harsh weather conditions? They did, and they're linking it perhaps to poverty and food security.
Did you find anything surprising on this report yourself? Because the issue around education also comes up. Some of them say it's improved, others say it's a bad form of education. Is this based again on perception and what they hear in the media?
I think all these things are a double-edged sword. You can't please everybody. And yes, like you, Trevor, the research will fairly often surprise me because I don't live everywhere. I am also subjective as a person, just like you would be, because it's based on your own habitat. But indeed, I think when we look at things more objectively, which I've learned to do, then you find that if you look at education, a shocker for me, but I'm privy enough to have friends now who are teachers because I'm undertaking a project with some of them. And some of these teachers, one of them told me something very interesting. She just got a job in Bungoma. and she's teaching this junior secondary. And she said to me, Angela, do you know in this junior secondary, first of all, she's applauding CBC. She says, students sit in groups and discuss, and they're very involved and animated. So that's a plus, that it's not talk down, it's applicational. So our children will now be able to compete with other students in the globe who deal with applicational learning. The second thing she said to me is, initially, she was working elsewhere, where she was not comfortable with or known to the culture, nor obviously the language. And she said, in Bungoma, because of now the return to your location for the teachers, which apparently is worked very well, is applauded by teachers, she said to me, you know, there are kids who even up to junior secondary level, they're smart, they're intelligent, they know what they're talking about, but they understand things better when you explain it both in Kimombo, but also in mother tongue.
Okay.
So those are some of the things that you and I, sitting here, we may be seeing, things are not working, but there are also things that have worked well. Yeah.
All right. So I'll give you a chance for closing remarks right now. And Karanja Gitonga here says, Infotrak could be right, but I find it quite a coincidence that their report comes days after Azimio leader Raila Odinga and other principals announced that there will be demonstrations in 14 days. All right. Jafet Kikuvi says, you don't need rocket scientists to know that Kenyans are suffering, not even an opinion poll. For those who are saying that Infotrak got the election wrong, I want to remind them that Raila Odinga won the election and is the people's president, all right? Like you said, there's a lot of subjective comments here on Twitter. Let's see if we can get a few of them. John Ondiek, he's a teacher actually, says Kenya is heading in the wrong direction and in a steep slope from failed junior secondary school and CBC to high cost of living to abnormal taxes. In fact, we need urgent innovation of our economy. I agree with the Infotrak poll. Mungu akuje mwenyewe asitume hata malaika. Okay. We don't think we have more. Let's get some closing remarks.
My closing remarks, yes. Trevor, is I have done this for a long time. I do it because I believe in Kenya. Politicians sometimes think they're the only people who have the right to say they believe in the country. You believe in the country because you wake up in the morning, you come to work, irrespective, you're giving us information. So are the crew here, and thanks to them. Every single individual matters and plays a role. And we do it because we have values. Today, someone asked me, what would you live for and what would you die for? I would die for my family. So I'll do anything for my family, but I live for my values. And those values have taken me from 2004 when I started Infotrak to today. I have gone through a lot in terms of what people think about us, but I stay focused. Because in the end, if this poll can get to the policymaker, it can get to cabinet secretary to the point, Trevor, that they're calling you and panicking because they're looking bad. And tomorrow they will be sitting with their team. I have helped someone. And if you can help someone every single day, then you will sleep easy. I rest my case.
All right. I believe that's where we leave it for now. That's all the time we had. Angela Ambitho, CEO, Infotrak Research and Consulting Limited. Asante sana for making time, all right?
Thank you.
That's where we leave Newsnight for now. Next week, Higgs will be back. Good night. My name is Trevor Ombija.